Do you ever feel like a short order cook instead of a superhero? Or are you tired of mealtime battles and guilt over not serving those perfect dinners? Get ready to transform your family's eating habits with some sanity saving strategies from a dietitian guest who's been in your shoes. Stay tuned for this game changing episode in just a few moments. Welcome back, my friends, to Fulfillment Therapy. Today we have a special guest, Jason Levee, a registered dietitian and dad of three. He's the founder of Whole Family Life and is all about helping families tackle mealtime challenges like picky eating and meal planning, especially when life gets busy. He focuses on creating personalized, sustainable nutrition plans that work for everyone in the family. And his goal is to make mealtimes less stressful and more enjoyable, which I know our listeners can relate to. I was actually just thinking about this before you came on, Jason, and I'm like, it would be really great to have him at our house. So excited to have you on the show.
I'm excited to be here. Don't think I'll be coming to your house, but that's okay. I can help you out virtually as much as I can.
We were just talking about you're from New York City and I am in Idaho, so that would be quite the jaunt.
Exactly.
So tell me a little bit about yourself before we jump into everything. Give us the little Reader's Digest.
So like you said, I'm a registered dietitian, but I haven't always been a dietitian. When I started my career about 15 years ago, I actually worked in financial services for a while and never really loved it, but always kept coming back to the burning passion within me for nutrition. I would talk about nutrition and health at work all the time, but I never really saw that career path. And then, I got married and my wife looked at me one day. She's like, you need to do something that's going to really make you happy. What's that going to be? And we talked a lot about things I really love. Nutrition kept coming up. So I talked to a few other dietitians and realized that was the path I wanted to go down. Since a long time ago now, probably 7 or 8 years ago, I went back to school, completely redid my bachelor's and became a dietitian a few years ago. It's the best. I absolutely adore it. I didn't intend to actually work with families originally, but my oldest son was born while I was in the middle of my master's program. And I just had this realization of there's so much nutrition information out there and a lot of it's noise. And it's really hard if you don't have the time to actually parse through it all to figure out what's really important and what's just pseudoscience. I realized, wow, there's such an opportunity to work with families to build in kids and build in families such a stronger foundation and a stronger relationship with food. And so that's what really inspired me to start Whole Family Health. Day in, day out, I get to work with families across the country on Zoom and meet with them, talk about food and figure out what's going on in your situation right now and what's the next step we can take. And the step after that, put together that long-term plan made up of all of those little pieces. So everyone's situation is different. And that's what keeps it interesting for me. It's to work through the different situations, the specifics, the nuances, the allergies or like the religious preferences, cultural preferences, whatever it is. Everyone's situation is different. And that's what makes it fun. That's what keeps me going. So yeah, I'm excited to talk a little bit more about the stuff I do every day and talk to you today.
Oh, awesome. Thank you for that summary. And I really want you to have a magic wand like people wanted me to have as both a personal trainer and as a therapist. I want to be like, okay, Jason, just give me that magic wand. This is what I want. We just got back from a resort that was wonderful. And I told my family, I was like, you know what? I feel like I hit my quota somewhere around probably 30,000 meals. I have a 17-year-old and four children, often five with an exchange student that will live with us, depending on who's in the house. So that's a lot of meals to prepare over the years. And now we're getting to that part where they're in and out of the house a lot, like going from different activities. All that time you put in, they're not even all necessarily enjoying it together. It just feels like a lot. And I don't want to do it anymore. I remember judging people that didn't want to. And suddenly I'm like, I just don't even care. Let's all make a sandwich and call it good. The magic wand that I'm wanting is coming back from this resort, a waiter to hand me things and give me all the things I don't want to put any effort. And Jason, I know you can't give me that, but I really want you to give me that. So what can I do to make it easier?
So short of hiring a personal chef, you can keep it simple, right? The simplest solution is usually the best solution. And there's this temptation to overcomplicate things, kind of start from scratch every single day. And that works for a couple weeks, maybe. In your situation, it works for a day or two. And then all of a sudden it's Wednesday and you're like, oh my God, there's still 3 more days left in just the work week. What are we going to do? I'm all out of ideas. Burnout as a parent is real. It is so real. No one has to talk about it, but it's real. Cooking or meal prep or meal sourcing plays a part. It can play a big part. It can play a little part. But almost every parent I talk to is somewhere like on high end of the burnout meter. And it's a little bit scary, right? To feel like you're in that position. The best thing to do is take a step back and see what you can delegate or offload. And if your kids are older, get them involved. If your kids are younger, get them involved. The younger kids start to assist with either meal prep or food shopping or menu planning. The better skills they're going to develop over time, the more bought in they're going to be, and the more willing they're going to be to try new foods. This is like an approach that you figure out where you are and you figure out what the next step is, but it helps to tackle a lot of different fronts all at once. One step is to bring other people in, take things off of your plate. Have a family meeting if that's something your family does, or talk about it as a family. Like, I'm really burnt out. This is a really busy week for me at work. This is a really busy season. Whatever it is, just have that conversation. Be open and be honest. When it comes to keeping it simple, let's say you're the only one who can cook for whatever reason, and it all falls back to you. Keep it simple. Break meals down into 3 components: a protein, a starch, and a vegetable. That does not have to be a gourmet meal. Most of our meals should just be functional. Every once in a while, if you want to go all out and make something that is truly gonna knock everybody's socks off, great, go for it. I will tell you, I have a 5-year-old, almost 6, and a twin 4-year-olds. The likelihood of me, and I'm usually the person who cooks in our family, doing something like gourmet or super intense in the kitchen right now is basically 1%. It might happen once a year. It probably happens less than that. And so meals are functional. If you break it down into those 3 components, it's really easy to say, okay, what's my protein? Cool. It's going to be chicken, salmon, tofu, whatever, right? You pick something from protein. How are you going to prep it? Keep it simple. Roast it, grill it. I don't have a grill because I live in New York. Grill it if you have one. Cut it up and saute it. Pick something that's easy, that works for you, that your family likes. Maybe try a different seasoning if you really want to branch out a little bit. But don't step so far into the unknown that all of a sudden you're introducing something completely different and you don't even know if it's going to work. And now you're stressed out because it didn't work or half your family didn't like it. So take one little step at a time. For starches and for veggies, just pick one and start with it. Maybe it's rice, pasta, sweet potatoes, or white potatoes. Just make it and then make a vegetable. Steam it, roast it, buy frozen veggies. I buy frozen veggies every single week because they are the easiest shortcut to take. And they are just as, in some cases, more nutritious than fresh. Lean on the shortcuts you can take that you still feel good about. Keep it simple. And plan using this model and look at the week ahead. Some people like to do it on Sundays, some on Wednesdays. You could do it today. Today's Monday. You could plan the week out. Protein, starch, vegetable. Lay it out. Write it down. That way you can figure out, okay, I have more time on Monday night to cook, so I'll make extra of everything. Then we're going to have pretty much the same thing on Tuesday. Or I will keep the seasoning really simple on it, and then I'll add this sauce or condiment to completely change the flavor on Tuesday. And then Wednesday I can cook again. You carry on that pattern throughout the rest of the week. And now this mental burden of having to plan daily is gone. I can do it now in 5 minutes. But when I first started doing it, I would agonize over every decision. And it's like, if we have brown rice on Monday, are they going to want it again on Tuesday? How much variety do I really need? Does it need to be a different flavor or different grain or different this or different that? And now I look at it and I'm like, all right, what do I have in the pantry? Do I need to go to the store again? When is that happening? Or am I ordering groceries online? So instead, I keep my pantry stocked as best I can and then reach in there and see, okay, I have lentils or I have rice or I have whatever it is. And that's my starch on this day. And if I need to go to the store, when can that happen? Or can my wife go? Or can someone else go? How do we figure this out? It's just that problem solving and keeping it to small problems rather than letting them turn into bigger problems. So it's a long answer, but the gist of it is really keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. Just get out of your own way and break it down and just put those pieces together.
I like that. I feel like I have implemented some of these, so maybe you can give me like a further step. But honestly, I think most of the listeners are where you're at. Like they have younger kids, they're doing it often alone. There's total chaos. And I have that as well, but maybe it just started shifting. My youngest is 8 years old. I implemented this during grad school, I think, when I couldn't keep up anymore, where now we all take a night and cook besides the 8-year-old, but he can still help. So I'm not making all the meals anymore, which is awesome, but it's still that struggle even with my spouse, where they're like, I don't know what to make. And that's the worst part for me. I'm like, I don't have any more mental space for figuring it out. I'd want you to 100% take over, not for me to walk you through it all, which is not totally fair for the younger kids. I love how you made it really simple with a protein, starch, and veggie. But do you have a way to lay it all out where they can just look at something? Or what do you do for decision making for that?
My kids actually aren't too young to help out. They have a lot of opinions and they share them all the time. Very much about food. You can make a chart, and it doesn't matter how old your kids are. You can use pictures if you want. You can use words. If your family is like a Google family and you want to use the Google spreadsheet, you can do whatever you want as a way to share a document. But you basically just lay it out. If using your example, Kendra, of having a different family member cook each night, add a column that says who's cooking. It's this person on Monday, this person Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, so on and so forth. Um, and then also build in time. If you know you're going to order takeout on certain nights, just put it on the schedule. Like, there's no shame in it. It's fine. Just plan for it. That way, this week's going to be crazy, but I actually only need to figure out 4 nights of meals instead of 7, because those other 2 or 3 nights we're going to either go out or order in or whatever. But you can lay it out on a spreadsheet or a table, or if you have a whiteboard, or there's like smart boards that people have in their kitchens now. Whatever visual medium you want to use it, and have it on the fridge and have it centrally located where everyone can see it, and maybe set a deadline for everyone to figure out what they're going to make. Maybe it's by Saturday afternoon so you can grocery shop on Sunday. You can have that list come together 24 hours in advance. Whatever works for you. The answer that works for you is not necessarily going to be the answer that works for me. And that's fine, because we don't need to use the exact same systems. But having it visually presented builds accountability. It also makes everyone aware and lets you know, here are the pieces that are missing. Here's something that might pop up as where I need to step in and assist. And that's fine. Knowing those things in advance really helps. It prevents that last minute scramble. And instead, you can plan for it and take action earlier on. You can prevent things from going wrong. That's the real magic one, is to make all the problems go away. You do the best you can. And not everything's going to be a 10 out of 10. Part of it is just accepting that's okay. Not everything needs to be perfect all the time.
Letting go. That's a big theme that keeps coming up in almost every episode. And I love how you simplify it too in many ways, like not only with the 3 things, but there's no shame in frozen vegetables. I didn't know for the longest time that sometimes frozen vegetables are healthier than produce that's been sitting out for a long time. We put these huge expectations on ourselves all the time, especially as parents, when it's not really necessary. My son actually just said last night, he's about to turn 14 tomorrow. And I feel like I really want to step up my game when it comes to making meals. My older daughter teases him, you just always make mac and cheese. We don't want mac and cheese. But that does require me as a parent. It feels big in my mind of like mapping all that out, like putting a chart. But really, if I were to do all of that and like something that I could put on the fridge for like ideas, like you said, for proteins, for starches, for veggies, and then they could just look at it and circle their one, it doesn't really have to take that much time.
It's literally a blank sheet of paper. You just draw a table on it. It does not have to be fancy. Like, you don't have to go on Pinterest and find some template or anything. I can't tell you how many times I've done it on the back of it and then just taped it to the fridge, which is, for whatever reason, fridges aren't magnetic anymore. I guess stainless steel, but tape it to the fridge and it's up there. And that's what I work off of for the week or the day or whatever it is. Sometimes it's a note on your phone. It does not need to be complicated. Also, happy early birthday to your son. And mac and cheese is great. You can make mac and cheese as like a component of a meal instead of having it be like the only thing, right? That can be your starch, or if you add proteins and veggies, it can be a whole meal. You can go any number of ways without leaving the kingdom of mac and cheese. So there's lots and lots of directions to go with it. You give them credit for making mac and cheese at 14. That's great.
I like how you celebrate the win because we're all like, again. But you're right. Like the fact that my kids are doing this, they're going to be so much more prepared come time for them to leave home, when so many people are like, I never even gone in the kitchen to attempt to do that because my parents just do it for me. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what other tips do you have for us as busy parents? Sometimes we have really picky eaters. For example, my youngest son, my 8-year-old, he was the best eater I ever had. Like, he would always be there with me for meal prep before he started school, before 5. And he would be like eating all the things. I'm talking like jackfruit, jicama, like all these things kids wouldn't even touch. He was in it. But then he started eating school lunches and this terrible stuff that I don't love. And now he's way more picky and I don't want to eat that. So, what can we do with kids like that are just suddenly more picky and contrary to help mealtimes go smoother?
There's a lot. It depends on many factors, but broadly speaking, stick with it. It takes a really long time for kids to form opinions of foods. It takes between 17 and 21 exposures to a food to form a full-fledged opinion of it, and then it's still going to change over time. For example, I hated mushrooms when I was a kid, love them now. And that transition happens sometime around, I don't know, I was probably in my early 20s. I made up in my head that I was allergic to them and just like would stay away from them, and then found out that I was eating them cooked all along. My mom was just hiding them. It's a different story altogether. Your tastes change over time, and that's likely to happen. The hard part with school lunches and with kids now, more so even than when we were growing up, is the exposure to packaged foods and the consistent flavor. Like it's exactly the same every single time. You open up a thing of Pringles, for example, and they're all exactly the same shape, exactly the same texture, exactly the same flavor. If you peel an orange, two segments might taste different from each other. That unpredictability creates a subconscious anxiety for our kids sometimes if they're rigid about their way that they're thinking about food. And there's a lot of comfort in those packaged foods because you know exactly what you're getting. When it comes to our fruits and our vegetables, like blueberries, some of them are going to be really tart, some of them are going to be really sweet. You don't know until you bite into it. That can cause anxiety sometimes. It may be like a low level of anxiety, but it's still anxiety. And so kids will opt for comfort sometimes, and comfort can come from those packaged foods that have that really predictable, hyper palatable flavor. A lot of the foods that are offered are flavored beyond anything that would naturally occur. And so it overwhelms your taste buds and it tastes unlike anything else. Our brains are hardwired to want those things. And the food companies know this. And so they play on that a little bit. So it makes it really difficult for parents at home. We're going to have this chicken and broccoli and rice type of meal or whatever it is. And kids can really dig their heels in. And you never want to send your kids to bed hungry. You don't feel good doing that. It's hard. You stick with it and you take the pressure off. Oftentimes kids get really picky and parents lean into it. They dig their heels in and it creates this power struggle. And your kid's going to win that every single time. You're not going to feel good if you force them to eat something, take the pressure off. So they don't want to eat it. That's fine. This is what's for dinner, right? There's no other option. A little bit harder with older kids because they're much more self-sufficient, but you can control what's in your house, right? You can say, this is what's for dinner. If you aren't going to eat it, that's fine. That's your choice, but this is what's for dinner. And there's not going to be anything else later. If your kid misses one meal, if you're not food insecure, they're going to be fine. They learn pretty quickly. This works really well with little kids. Turns out parents of little kids are the least willing to do this. I will tell you from personal experience, one of my kids will occasionally just throw a complete fit at the dinner table and ask for a million different things. And part of it's you guys stay calm, keep really calm and say, look, like this is what's for dinner. If you don't want to eat it, you don't have to. But this is what's available. And here's the rest of our routine before we go to bed. Granted, my kids are little, so they're not staying up late after dinner usually. Sometimes they do. But yeah, and then usually right around the time they're going to bed, they're like, I'm hungry. And I'm like, this is now that conversation we're going to have. And we talk about it. Like, you made a choice at dinner time. You didn't want to eat what was there. I'm making sure I include foods that I know is like safe foods for them. And still they'll push back and say, I'm hungry. I didn't eat dinner. And you feel like a terrible parent. And it's awful. But then the next day, you know what happens? First went to the table for dinner. And we're on like in every 6 months it happens with one of my kids. And it's fine. It happens once and then it doesn't happen again for a long time. And it's usually the same child in my case. You can do things like that to hold the line. You can bring your kids into more of the prep and planning and get them even more involved as much as they're willing and able to do. Kids as young as 3 years old can use kid-safe knives if you supervise them and teach them. And then all of a sudden, you'll have a 5-year-old who uses a knife independently. Yeah, that's really cool. You can do things like that to teach skills they can use in the kitchen, and then they'll take pride in things that they make. It's a little bit harder as you get into the teenage years sometimes, but if you instill those values in your kids early on, they're going to want to be involved until they don't. So they'll, for the most part, want to be involved. And then you got to keep a sense of humor about it. And just recognize that not every day is going to be perfect, and it's okay. You got to worry about the next day. You can't really worry about what's already happened. It's like a rocking chair, though. It's not really going to get you anywhere. So you just move forward to the next day and say, okay, what's the little thing that we can do a little bit differently today or tomorrow? What can we change? What's that small change that we can make? And then did it work? Maybe it didn't. If it didn't, okay, why didn't it work? Let's do that postmortem. And if it did, great. Can we keep pushing the envelope a little bit further forward? We keep moving forward a little bit. And it's that incrementalism that all of a sudden you look back after 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and you say, oh my goodness, I started out here. I had no idea what was going on. Now I'm in a completely different place. And that goes for pretty much anything. But when it comes to food, it can look like my kid's only eating like 6 or 7 foods. It's probably more than that, but you hear that a lot. And they're all the exact same color, beige foods. How do I get them to branch out and get away from just straight up chicken nuggets and goldfish, things like that? And so we take one step at a time. Okay, your kid really likes chicken nuggets. Let's try a different brand. Sometimes that's too much of a step, right? Or maybe sometimes that's the right step. Sometimes it's a different shape of chicken nugget. Sometimes it's fish sticks instead. Sometimes it's chicken in a different format. It just depends on the kid. And we just play around with those different food adjacencies and slowly branch out. Sometimes kids are really into a color, right? So maybe they're really into red and they'll only eat things that are red. That's fine. I would love for a kid to eat red apples, red peppers, tomatoes, all these different things. They're all red and you can lean into that. So you can go lots of different directions with it to help kids expand their palate.
That's really helpful. I actually hadn't thought about the adjacent food before. And even you just talking about boundaries, don't be a pushover, but don't engage in that power struggle. This is our limit. This is our boundary, our expectation for our family. You don't have to make it this big battle. It could just be like, yeah. And they're going to push back. They're kids. We even push back as adults. Sometimes we all need boundaries. That's so healthy for families. So I love the simple different tips that you give for improving meal times and also like improving wellness, like introducing other things, recognizing those stages of development are normal and it's okay. And it doesn't have to be this big, terrible thing. Just take it as it comes. Wonderful advice for those of us, which are all of us, parents trying to improve meal times and simplify our life. Do you have any final thoughts for us today on how we can make this easier, simpler, and find more joy when it comes to feeding our families or improving our health when it comes to food?
The simplest things are, like I said before, are usually the best, but the best thing is sit down with your family for meals. Yeah. There's some research that says if you can hit 7 meals a week, you're in a good spot. It does not always have to be dinner. It could be breakfast. It could be multiple meals in the same day. But sit down as a family and eat together. It's not just about the food. It's about the conversation. It's about the connection. It's about spending time together, devices away, no phones, no tablets, no laptops, no TV, nothing like that. Put it all away and just talk to each other. Actually hear how their day was. Hear about what's going on at school, what's going on with soccer, what's going on with whatever activities your kids are doing. Tell them about something interesting that happened in your workday, even if it's not really that interesting. They might think it is, right? And that's how you learn about each other. That's how you share. That's how you model for your kids how to act at a table, right? One of the ways our kids learn how to use utensils is not just by picking them up, but also seeing how other people do it. And that works at every age. It's just that opportunity to connect. It might feel awkward at first to not have everybody have a phone in their hand or anything like that, but it's a chance to really connect. And you can do that at home. You can do that at a restaurant. You can do it anywhere. Uh, that time you spend together, so you may as well actually engage with each other and really enjoy it. Then you can start to get into the different foods and things like that. But I really think it comes back to sit down together and enjoy a meal together. For the most part, I don't really care what it is. I just care that you guys are getting together and actually enjoying a meal together. That's super, super important. That's where I like to start.
I love that. And I hadn't even thought about I take it for granted because that's something that we've really valued for a long time. So that is definitely my non-negotiable. It's definitely harder with teenagers coming and going, but it's this thing that we aim for every night, at least one meal a day. But that's beautiful parting advice. So thank you for that and for coming on the show. Also, Jason, where can we find you if we want to reach out or hear more about you or what you have to offer?
Absolutely. So I'm on Instagram at wholefamilyhealth.co. And my website's also wholefamilyhealth.co, not .com. On there, you can find ways to contact me. I'm in the process of updating my website right now, so it might not work fully. But I recently came in network with insurance, which is exciting. So I'm able to work in network and allow someone other than you to actually pay for your nutrition counseling, which is great. Just reach out and I'm happy to help however I can.
Thank you again. And we'll put that in the show notes so they can find you. Thank you for coming on. We loved having you.
Thank you.